we are on the verse number, stanza number 109. bodhisattva kede surup sammebe dradi choja minchena rubayini gyuroma tambe choja jidi chos. Okay. 109, please. Kelsey la unmute. Okay.
But why should my enemy be venerated, who has no intention for me to practice patience? Then why venerate the sacred Dharma? It too has no intention, but is a fit cause for practice.
Oh, that's. But the case should tatus compassion yagodoga namsha jundonga jo dadi susugi che chebala geg mayimba ani karso goreta che chebe la ya tadangde 당아도 디 지단에 가서 녀모 주식 망부여래데 다디 카슈 난게 카슈들이 대인도 좀 다 디기 그래서 그래 삼바데 템부 제비 쳐도 아니 더고만 손에 더고 세야기 더고 세야라 더고 여러 더고디 남는 더고 쪼우들이야 니 아니 그래서 그래 단다 디나로 야고도 그제 투전 휴지 타베기 디나로라야 제상가 디기 만 저번정도 선배 아니 든데도 송샤 아니 디에 딕토스 로기 트란티리바 베제티리바 사면 어디
예 쇼탄
숨게 굽지고
숨지고 숨이 예
다 도저 세주아 개 중국어로 개된뇌지 자티 쇠비 주루 장사 다게 장심될 서버드베 토차원에 편 더버는 되베 군롱기 상바상바 매베세디 이나는 개 치슈디 가리지고도스나 아니 쇠비 주도 차기도스 다딩아도 삼나 열다 쇠바치에 주다레 티 마레스니 수지야 마레 이나야 아니 동아란저기 마란저 시스템 나로야 추 펜토버치 꾸노도 요 마레스 알리야 다디 에네 체버 체베 에네 두 마레 토기 아주 상제버 에네 쇠바 공벌체비기 겐점시레 이나에 초마레 초마인데 팬도그 삼바민도 와스 다디르 띵아주 창만으로 다 패션디 캔디를 가지고 랜디 레고요 디전한도 이미지 혼로사비까리야 레 아닌 소소기 미시기 뇨알이야 벤자르시 디 용무도 다 백해심으로샤 디 베자나도 도서야 마임바 소소 뇨알 반자레 백해심으로샤 디지 규란다냐나
So in the so the most important way to think in relation to this verse 109 is to look at the sort of normal way in which we view the enemy. So it's possible to so maybe so to think it's very rare that we will think about the enemy as being not only not an obstruction to our practice, but actually a support for our practice, support for the attainment of the fully enlightened state. And so it's very within our whole range of emotions. We all sort of come up with there's a couple of doubts that arise in relation to this. Because the enemy is being a support, we'll be very doubtful that the enemy can be a support to our practice, and to support for us in order to, as a cause to attain enlightenment. So we may say that, okay, yes, there are definitely a cause of patience. So that in that sense, we can accept that they're a kind of mere cause. They're a mere cause. They're a mere cause for for us to practice, because they are the cause of patience, and no one would say anything other than that. But in their minds, in our minds, what we're really thinking is that they're not. But they're not a real support to our practice. They're not a real kind of beneficial help to us attaining enlightenment, because the enemy doesn't have the mind which wishes to benefit us, to improve our welfare inside of them. And so we can go so far as to say that they're a cause of our practice, but not a support for a cause of our patience, but not a support for the practice of patience and the attainment of enlightenment. And this is something that this is innate within us. It's not something that we think about and come up with. It's very at a deep kind of innate level, and we should look. So this is something which is sort of talked about in the text, but we don't need to just think about it in relation to the text. We need to look at our own experience when we're angry. Look at our own experience and see if this comes up. So you may be able to accept that they, in some sense, are a mere cause, but not an actual beneficial support.
So.
Sorry, Rinpoche, I didn't read the text.
It's okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
So today may be difficult to have two translators at the same time, right?
Yes, so, unfortunately, we can't do it from this channel.
So no problem. Tiala, if you can make few notes, important notes, then maybe you can give it just like a brief message to our Italian groups. Okay?
Okay, Rinpoche, thank you so much.
Bodhisattva. Di seminar yagu penpu shudu wa pensim mena ku dil pensim mena ane dil ya ane azuma sone kyabam ane cheba ane ranju gi karsogoreta ranju pen thoya chiksorta kodebuchena pen thoya jila ane unji 제 외국 말이 삼대요나스 다디 먼저 요르 자네 야통 요르 디 여베이나 아나 남상 고 따스당도 와 배 따스니 보당도 와 따스당을 가르쳐서는 어쩌단 자딜레 펜셈메베 차네 자디 아는 란줄이야 만주기 아니 쳐버려 봐 아니 란줄이 초소비 신이 뭘 삼로당 외국면나 마요나 아니 최진 가르쳐고도 쓰나 고된도 주진 쪽도 봐. 최고죠 나는 고된. 제 아니 고된디 말하는 쪽이 야 말을 배. 최벌 집에 신 말을 배. 가르치는 쓰나 아니 고된디 아니 디 말을 봐. 그래서 안줄이야 펜토고 선배 꾸는도 요 말을 봤어. 디어도와 더 디기 람상코랑 삼로 나로리아 아주 랍제 가르고 수는 남규 겸조 체비 갑려야 상계수도 준비 셰네 최송년 선로지마도 상계기 연된 오마디 등신 오마디 아주 섬나로 양세 리기요 말과 딜레오 레야라 아니 고된스니데 섬나로 야고 실레 투요나 아니 렌드 잡투 단단한 저기 다디 아니가 란주기 처벌체색이 신스나 시스네 어디 레멘도 가르치는 펜세멘도가 쓰나 딜라다가 렌잡 투베치 가르치는 남샤 균도가 란주 짬르체가 갑라 고된데 양내양도 삼당고요 어디 렌다다디 수준이셔서나 네 계속 좀 무시하려고 견도 봐. 아주 딜레라고 렌잡 투고 말해. 그래서나 남자 운동을 하는 줄 täm블치가 갑라. 고된디 조리 최고죠. 조리에서 지금 라베 마도지게 삼로시다 땅 투고요 말봐.
And so in terms of this, because of in terms of the relationship to the enemy, when we bring up this argument and say, well, the enemy is not a valid place of refuge or about a place about something worthy of offering, a field or a basis on which to make offerings and kind of take refuge in, because they don't have this kind of motivating internal motivation to be of benefit to us, and it, so. But immediately, if we say it like that, if we sort of identify this the enemy as being unworthy of that kind of field of offering or place of refuge, because they don't have this motivating kind of beneficial mind towards us, then immediately there's a very easy debate that arises, and we. Because the pervasion is if they have no beneficial intent towards us, then they're not worthy of respect or veneration or offering, and so if we take the truth of cessation, the truth of cessation has then the reasoning would go, the debate would go, the truth of cessation is not an object worthy of taking refuge in, because it has no motivating beneficial intent toward, it has no beneficial intent towards us. And usually when if we were very well trained in the understanding of what of the different the different refuges within the Buddhist tradition, then this debate would immediately come to our mind. It doesn't immediately come to our mind because we don't think, we tend to think more in terms of the Buddha as being the refuge, because the Buddha is the one who propounds the teachings. But we don't so much tend to think about the quality of the Buddha, the qualities of the Buddha, and they don't so quickly come to our mind when we think about refuge. It may be that we think, oh, we've heard sort of the Dharma jewel is the real, the actual or the main refuge. But again, it may not be that it's not so likely that we would think of the truth of cessation as being immediately springing to mind as the kind of one of the main or the actual source of refuge, and therefore this debate will not arise so quickly to our minds. But the debate goes that truth of cessation is not a worthy basis of offering or of praise or offering or refuge, because it doesn't have a beneficial mind towards us. Now we can't answer this debate like this very quickly, because the idea of this the truth of cessation being the real refuge doesn't spring to our mind immediately. But Shantideva can answer like that very quickly, as to give us to debate with us,
Shall I speak now in Italian, Rinpoche? Okay.
Maybe it will take so much time, so maybe
I'll make it later.
Yeah. So what you can do is you make a note, and then maybe send the note in the group people who wanted to know what I said. Okay.
Yes. Good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
다 디르샤. 다 니버티. 죄송하다 당부디 꾸룽 가소래 맵 펜심 맵이 있나요? 아니 아라운즈기 최바를 왜 봐. 아니 변나 최권 좀 나시. chio konjo 나로니 ranju 남자 정도 다 그래서 그래 고된다 람덴스 지지 숨은 신 고된 디 아주 딱벌 제 안에 드네 디 톱지기 탑데 아주 동니도비 싫어 시그요래 동니 거랑 삼로당 버이나 자심부시부지래 이 자심부 인단디 공알 핑기를 섬섬 지기 꾸노유비 찾네 그래도 다디 양양 삼로당 인디 개침부려도 와 디진도 잠베 아니 꾸노 메나야 다 콜이야 가르쳐 그래 최배 유의 아니 마임바 아니 자금 두스 담보지 다니버디 야도주 개대 다디 뇌자베 삼유 최저 민시나 멤버신도 펜전나 다기 수바지들 두부스 110 please.
Surely my enemies are not to be venerated, for they intend to cause me harm. Then how could patience be practiced, if like doctors, people always strove to do me good?
어디디 다 꾸노 다 밑에서 말하는 저기 미 첨바지가 출라고요 쓰는 멤버 대수선 남사전도 냠냠바지라디 깨졌디 랑슈고 태야도 지래 그래서는 콜 다들 가부쳐 버렸어 다들 가부쳐 오고 말 통할 뇌제수 뇌지기도 세되고 조 뇌제 꾸롱요 찬 조디도 와 삼로디 콩알로 여 뇌지 꾸롱요 찬 그래도 마도 신 꾸롱 매베는 주뇌베 제베이네요 아주 렌뎁 제거예요 말 그는 중요한 뇌바도 좀 중배갑라 아주 텔레야 뇌렌치야 삼모 코르금도 다 비게 꾸롱들한테 콩알로 뇌가 꾸롱도스 다 델렌디 잡았나신 꾸롱 요래 대야 셔버치베 외버 말이 샤스 젠다 지기도 서버 공방 최베 최버치베기 꾸롱 매나야 디체투 그래서 펜싱 꾸롱면도 돼 디가나 양조콜 가르도스나 뇌심기 꾸롱도 도스 말래 네버 쳐보시면 꾸롱도 도스라나 다시네 렌자베티 저장가 게디케나리아 펜토고 섬지냐냐 제데비나 안처럼 서버기 냠낸 탄니 친구랬어 서버 파르도 마침 발라니 소소 된 제도 말에 생계 된 제도 말에 대인도 선배 다 서버스니데 아니 술된 그런 공부인 바스 이 펜토니 멤버나신 지기 그뒤에 결례 결혼이야 나자 차나 펜나섬 대딩 상계선으로 짠짠지기나 결혼 서버 공부기 시고라 라브스다 오늘 결혼 딘데 제베이나 상계 도서를 그렇지 도송도 봐 대인도 선배 아주 서버 공식이 시딜 아주 순위 기 권위지 따디가 가르두고요 디지도 아란 저기 최진행기 당연 디스줄다 연 디스줄난다
and so in relation to the first reason that we just talked about, and then it's you know, when we're sort of talking about well, they don't you know, the enemy doesn't have, you know, doesn't have a beneficial intent towards us, and therefore they're not worthy of, you know, of taking refuge, or worthy of offering or respect in that sense. And so then they bring in this you know, the sense of the jewel of the Dharma, the jewel of the Dharma as being one of the refuges, which includes the truth of cessation and the truth of the path, which leads to cessation, and the truth of cessation. And so, you know, okay, the truth of cessation is kind of permanent phenomena, so we may not think of that as being sort of beneficial in and of itself. But then if we talk about the truth of the path, the truth of the path which leads to cessation, then that is you know, essentially the method of achieving the cessation, which is the wisdom realizing emptiness. Now, when we think of emptiness there, then we really do think, oh, that's, you know, we value that greatly. We find it tremendously beneficial. but also the truth, the wisdom realizing emptiness has no motivating, no kinds of a beneficial intent, motivating intent behind it at all. And so that would also, on the reasoning that we've gone through, that would also not be worthy of refuge, because it has no motivating intent. So in the second sort of clearing away the kind of the second doubts which raised, and in relation to that, in verse 109, it's then 110, and then it's sort of then it talks about, so this not it then sort of talks about how it's not just that then we sort of add an extra sort of layer to it by saying, well, it's not just that they don't have that the enemy doesn't have a beneficial intent towards us, but it's also on top of that they have a harmful intent to me. They're motivated by a harmful intent, and therefore they're and therefore they should not be venerated because they have this harmful intent towards me. But we don't, for instance, when we don't get angry with things when harm or harm which is not motivated, because we're sort of arguing, well, I don't get the harm which accrues to me through sort of situations like related to the natural elements or something like that, then there doesn't have a harmful intent, and so that doesn't have a harmful intent to it. But the enemy is not worthy of respect because they're a cause, they're a causal condition for us to practice some to practice patience, but they're not worthy of respect because they have this harmful intent towards us. And so but then we have to think of, then the argument kind of goes, well, okay, if that's the case, if you're not going to sort of venerate, pay respect to, or kind of take a kind of refuge in the enemy because they have this harmful intent to you, then how are you going to find how are you going to practice patience? How are you going to complete the perfection of the practice of the perfections, and therefore to attain complete enlightenment? How are you going to complete the welfare of both oneself and others? Because who will you meditate? Who are you going to meditate, or who are you going to meditate or kind of practice patience in relation to? If you don't, if you're not going to practice it in patience to someone who has a harmful intent, then you'll use any kind of basis on which to practice patience. And so the arguments go from, first of all, not having, then they don't have a beneficial intent, and then the second sort of doubt or argument that's brought up in which is responded to is that not only do they not have a beneficial intent, they also have a harmful intent. And these are the two ways in which Shantideva debates with us in that regard.
So what is the takeaway from the message of Shantideva here? I think remember the Geshe Langri Thampa's 8 verses of the mind training. On the first the verse Satansa, where there is saying, by thinking of all the sentient beings. So we, at the moment, the person who is trying to generate patience, then at that moment you can put away the sentient beings for sight and put the thinking of all the enemies. And the specific, you have someone specific whom you are against, so bring that person in. So they're saying, by thinking of my enemy, so-called this person, as more precious than a wish fulfilling jewel, for accomplishing the highest aim, I will always hold you so dearly. Okay, so when we are saying it's more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel,
Yeah.
ranzu basa dane samjen tamjele yishin nubu le alhabe yishin nubu le alhabe yishin nubu le alhabata dante. So seeing more precious than a wish-fulfilling gem, then you need to, when you say that to specific your enemy, then you cannot bring the saying, my mother is kind, my friend is so helpful, all this reason you cannot bring here. So now you have to bring only the Shantideva's reason in this. So then you have to make your enemy so precious. Then you will say, I will always hold them so dearly. Then you bring all the sentient being in, then it will become the perfect picture is complete. Otherwise, what we always do is, when you think about the qualities and the kindness of the sentient being, then always the enemy is left off somewhere. So it is really important for the person who wants really to generate compassion or great compassion or a bodhicitta. They need to bring somehow enemy into their meditation very strongly. Because in this life, the dangerous is we might make so much kind of a disconnect from some of the sentient beings who is the enemy. Your friend with the attachment, through your attachment, you will hold them. And your family, no problem. But the enemy, you will always leave them out. So give a best reason to think how kind they are. I'm not saying with the motivation they are so kind. No. The thinking like without they don't have a motivation to help us or something, but as the refutation which happened, just Shantideva explained, think even though they don't have a motivation to help me, but it's they once it's like a kind of a vaccine which works in your body and it makes your immunity stronger. Forget about the COVID coronavirus vaccine, okay? To forget about this is debatable. But think about something else, bring something like one positive medicine inside you, and then it really helps you to bring your immunity stronger. If you met a Buddha and then say, I have so many enemies, I get so many bad comments on the Facebook, I get so many so much kind of harsh words from other people. So please guide me and help me. So one advice all the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas and your guru will only teach you is you have to practice patience. That's it. So that's only what they will tell you. On that level, it is saying you have to Buddha, when they saying bring patience in, you have to practice patience. It doesn't mean you stay away from the enemy. No. That's a really wrong image. Many people, what they do is bring a patience means, okay, just keep a distance. And then that kind of people never improves their compassion and their closeness to the other people. And then plus they have lots of doubts, and then maybe, oh, maybe not. Maybe he said something, oh, definitely because he said something like that. Add so many information and so much, the hatred becomes like out of
It's out of control, because out of proportion.
So this is a really important message. So when we do the Lojong Tsikima, the 8 verses of mind training, the first one, how to hold sentient beings dearly, then try to hold the enemy dearly, and all the rest sentient beings will come close to you. If you cannot hold your enemy dearly, then if you say, oh, hold the sentient being so dearly, that's a very tricky one. But if you are really trying to hold your enemy so dearly, then no doubt you are holding all the sentient beings dearly. Okay, so please think about this. The name
the membership do the membership do the pay the
membership do pension so the last two the sentence is giving an example that if you are a patient of anger, okay, you're a patient of anger, and you need a patience as a medicine. Then if somebody comes like an enemy with a good motivation and to give you like so much love and kindness to you, then how are you going to generate patience? That's the question. So that's yeah. So we should appreciate patience to give us a harm, to make us stronger. If it's a good kind of a mind training here. It's a really strong training actually. It's like an army doing a kind of a training, doing a training, hard training, like morning from 5 o'clock, going for a jogging non-stop for a 2 hour, 3 hours running. If they think very carefully, it's a it looks like a torture, but it's not. It is helping your kind of a body. It's for me. If somebody tells me go for a jogging for 2 hours non-stop, I will never listen to them. But if being an army, then they get this advantage. So similarly, for a person who is looking for a patience, strong patience, then they need to appreciate the enemies.
Act as a cause,
as an enemy as the cause to make them stronger. Okay. The next stanza, 111. tebe rabdo dangsemla teni söba gebena tini söbi gyuyinbe tambe chöshin chöbur wösa. 111, please.
Thus, since patient acceptance is produced and dependence upon one with a very hateful mind, that person should be worthy of veneration, just like the sacred Dharma, because they are a cause of patience.
Therefore says your bed. Oh, did what?
They will.
Did it?
They will.
Tebe said therefore like the bed.
Because of that,
because of that, or because is a cause of patience. I didn't do some of that. Sigdi, Tandadi, could you shimbure? Tebe Rapto, Tansamda, said the Digit and the Javana Chitevina, Pensam Lieutenant Subatier Mevati, Neoris. Pensam Lieutenant Subatier Mev. Subatier Balang about the new teenage Gugure. New teenage Yuna, Subatier Guyore, Judan Jubuniati. Oh, Tebe said, City, could you did it what? The patient figure out Mark too.
Thus, it says thus, but it's not. It doesn't make the relationship very clear. Thus. What I'm doing is sort of raising the doubt that in the translation where it uses in the first line there, it says, therefore, thus, since patient acceptance is produced in dependence upon one with a hateful mind. So I think that the word thus there is not really strong enough to kind of convey the sense which is used in the Tibetan of dewe. It's in the Tibetan, but what that is really saying is that it's impossible to develop patience in relation to those who try to benefit us, who have a wish to help and benefit us, and that kind of in relation to that kind of person is not possible. The patience will never arise in relation to that person, that kind of situation. Patience has to arise in relation to those who have a harmful intent towards us, for those who are harmful, people who harm us, who have harmful intent towards us. And so, there's this kind of sense of the core, a kind of cause and effect relationship between being able to develop patience and having this situation where there is a kind of form of someone who is wishing to harm us, or comes at us with a harmful intent. And I don't think that that's conveyed very well just by using the word thus in English. So
Mena minjungi javati nyene aneta kanje sanje da chanju symbol tene ye sobati yarge zawadi ne doya mendus pa nyebache ta sobati magomba ina nyege range tyen chetu mar shenge tyen chetu eyo maris dia taje ta onar dinjegi jige garsore range tyen da shenge tyen igale gegi chinyedi control di control di langbar checking tukin di dawd chadi yore de indu zambe dinje di ma chena wegu mari cheje yanne yando chansu kunia sonroti chansu tangyen robotela ta ranzo pena jimba dansala tanire yar sanje shingam tang mara simjing shingdo chagi yore ane churum sumbalani kapto su samrodi tat tomsim tendante rade yore ane jiba churum tas sebegi nyamne chini chigi metela ane dünle yata chiga chebegi ane tenji dünle shagona so dag dawugi da image se vorbe parha am ta ku shangna ta kensa bishitwa 다 빠르지 권연으로 지레도가 아직 우리 단다가 네 sembrado tempo tanhati 켈마된 용사말에 삼삼 주고도가 제정가 되게 쓰고 담배 최신 처벌을 된저기처럼 거린 심부레샤 삼로 코로온도 잠배 아니 디마도 신 저우 가르쳐 그래 아주 샘 딩네 샘다 예부수에 답시 디마도 요마래 어다디 이제 뭔지 아니 디 단다 계속 좀 쉬어라 송보텔 때는 아주 양내 양도 삼로 니에 배쳐 좀 버렸어 단다 죽지디 너무 손으로 지려도가 야도 죽지디
So in a sense, this 111th verse is a kind of summary of what we've been talking about here. It sort of collects together a lot of the meanings that we've been looking at. And what it's, as it says, this patient's acceptance is produced in dependence upon one with a very hateful mind. That person should be worthy of veneration, just like the sacred Dharma, because they are a cause of patience. And there's this sort of we have to look at this relationship, you know, this specific kind of relationship where if the prior thing does not exist, then the latter thing cannot arise. The latter cannot arise without the prior existence of something, and the latter cannot arise. So it's a very specific form of relationship which exists between here in relation to the enemy and our practice of patience. And so we have to really think about how our cultivation of patience, we have to get a very clear ascertainment about this relationship, and also that in order to, you know, practice the path and attain the enlightened state, then we have to the practice of patience is essential in attaining the enlightened state, but also in completing the welfare of both oneself and others. And that anger is an obstacle. That anger is an obstacle to achieving those things, particularly the welfare of oneself and the complete welfare of oneself and others, and therefore you know, we have to practice patience in relation to our own anger, and therefore that, you know, thinking that the, you know, those who harm the harmful ones in relation to us are not worthy of respect is actually and we're not worthy of practicing patience in relation to, then this is an obstacle to our progress. And, you know, in terms of let's say when we start looking through the perfections, in terms of the perfection of giving, let's say, then in the, you know, the offerings of the Buddhas or the Bodhisattvas or even the sentient beings, we can see them as a kind of object or a field in which to give. In ethical discipline, it's more of a kind of personal matter of developing these kind of mental states that give up on particular forms of negative behavior. But then when we come to patience, then there's only we need, you know, we actually need the person right in front of us, so to speak. They have to be in front of us. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to be their kind of physical body that's brought in front of us at the time, but we need this kind of one of harmful intent, an enemy, with that kind of because of a harmful because of motivation to harm us. But of course a picture or an image of them will do, and without you know, without this person, then it's not. We have to rely on this kind of person in order to practice patience. In the fourth line of this verse, it says, it's in the third line in the English. It says, because that person should be worthy of veneration, just like the sacred Dharma, because they are a cause of patience. So this enemy of ours is one, and we should really, and this should really come from our hearts. This you could really think that this is the only way that we're going to be able to practice the patience. That the only, you know, this kind of decisive ascertainment that this enemy is worthy of veneration because they help us. They're a cause or condition to help us practice patience. And so Shantideva is, this is, this should come really from our hearts. This is what Shantideva is really encouraging us to do. And so this verse kind of gives us a summary of a lot of the verses that have gone before.
So in order to bring this kind of a patience and to bring the image of the enemy in front of you, and then how to calm your mind. That calm thing is to nyamba se di kajawa.
Be kind of even because of remain kind of even in relation to them, because as a chanyamba doshi, there's a kondomalaya.
Even.
Yeah. So yeah, balanced or even.
To make this even, then two ways. One is through the one part, the conventional, the way of thinking, to level it, and then through the ultimate truth, leveling this. So these two needed. Then now we can talk this in our next class, but most importantly here for you to practice, it's not just a homework, it's more practice. So I know your dirty secret. It means that we all have our enemies somewhere. You don't need to agree with me, but what you can do is maybe it's a fresh, so bring the image of your enemy in front of you, and then will this Shantideva's way of thinking. How to prove that he's a kind? Very hard. Then now you have to bring, you have to think, without a patience, I will not be happy person.
Oh.
Simon, can you hear me?
I couldn't hear you then. No.
Oh, yeah.
Froze,
My internet is unstable. So, 제장가 단단히 라비아 가르스나 다 쇠바 곰발라 더우 네버도 고도스. 제장가 쇠바 곰야디 개침부 임버징이로 두. 쇠바 곰야디 개침부 임버지 야고 제제 라지 쳐나 안조 상한게발로 쇠바 고도. 미상 기부 주연발로 쇠바 고도. 다 쇠바디 고구 여바디 세바 하고서는 신의 쇠베 줄라 그래. 안조 당번에 셈나로리야 쇠바 신인데 자신부레세 타르 부샤시요. 취어 가리제베이네 짐바당야 수림송야 도즈 기도즈 지고르다. 다 쇠바 곰세 그냠낸 디다 하람 안주다 지게 매창매 야보레세지만 또 디토를 빼다 깔래 가셔 이제 지고요 말봐. 디인도 개체주도 아주 미진나로 쇠바지 거야. 배낭이 기부 충무가가 기부 딩가가 기부 침부가가 야나 기부 숨 많이 방아란 쪽에 단데 내당 디지털이나 쇠바 맨나다 미지 기부 연구해 봐. 타 제고. 대내신에 다우디 개침부 진바지 아주 삼마당당디 신에 다 쇠토서봐. 어딘지 다 드링 아주 딘지 kan 샤샤고.
And so when we're sort of cultivating patience, we need to really we need to get to this stage where we this understanding that we absolutely have to have an enemy, but first of all, in order to get to that stage, what is best for us to do is to first really establish the importance of patience. So really, because acculturating ourselves, really coming to the understanding that we need patience in order to attain the higher conditions and to attain full enlightenment. If we can come to that understanding that we absolutely have to have patience for that, then as a kind of byproduct of that, what will happen is that we'll then understand that we have to have the cause, and this will lead us to the idea that we have to have an enemy in order to practice in relation to. For, you know, in general, when we think about the perfections, we think of, you know, we'll sort of say, oh, patience, yeah, it's fantastic, it's a wonderful thing, it's great, but that's kind of, we kind of kept very far away from us. And, you know, the things like generosity and ethical discipline, these kind of things, which in some sense we've kind of feel a little bit closer to them. With patience, we're sort of like, oh, good, oh, it's good, it's very good, but it's hard for us to draw it close to us because it is the hardest of all of the perfections to practice. But actually what we need to come to a sort of very decisive conclusion about is that we need, whether it's the patience, the cultivation of patience is essential, whether it's for the beings of the lower scope, the beings of the middle scope, or the beings of the greater scope. But not even that, just for people like us in our lives, we have to come to this kind of decision that we will never be happy in our lives unless we're able to, never be properly happy unless we're really able to practice patience. And then if we can come to that kind of conclusive understanding, then very naturally, we'll see that the enemy is you need a cause in order to practice that patience, and therefore you'll understand the importance of the enemy. So this is probably the best way to come around at this for us.
Okay. So just giving you a tip, thinking about the patience, then if you can see without a patience, you will say, if I don't have this patience, then all this, make a kind of your own story. If I say this to that person, or if I bring my anger out, and then so many mess will come out for sure. Then even if I didn't say this, and even I hold, in Tibetan we have saying, if the fire is burning in your stomach, but don't let the smoke out. Okay, even this kind of thing, it doesn't have any pleasure. This is not a practice of a patience, but it is like a first step. Okay, so even this could be like, can save your image. This can stop so many coming up sufferings. Then not having a hatred, but feeling closer to the enemy, then that's the pleasure there. And this kind of pleasure you are seeking is not the kind of a samsaric pleasure here. It's to get out from the samsara and to having a bodhicitta and to benefit the sentient beings. This is really needed. So thing like this, today we stop here, and now dedication. Yeah, Chambachubala.
Okay. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Having thoroughly investigated in accord with all that I've heard day and night through the four reasonings, mind born of reflection on these topics of contemplation, may this discernment sever all doubts. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. In all my lives, never separated from perfect gurus, may I enjoy the magnificent Dharma. By completing the qualities of the grounds and paths, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. I fully dedicate all these virtues to be able to train just like the hero Manjushri who knows reality, and just like Samantabhadra as well. I fully dedicate all my roots of virtue with the dedication praised as the best by all the gone beyond victorious ones of the 3 times in order to have good conduct. With my heart going out with great compassion in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread, or one spread have declined, may I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid.
Thank you. Thank you very much. See you next time.
Thank you.
Maybe like maybe we can check maybe when I got a time, like Tia and Kelsey, we can figure out that how to like today I couldn't log in. So let's do our kind of a technical what do we say, work together. Okay, so
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Thank you. You will let us know, Rinpoche. Thank you so much.
Okay, yeah.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Okay.